All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast Interview, where every single week I interview top real estate professionals, top badasses out there dominating their space. And today, guys, I've got a great personal friend on. This is actually round number 2 on the podcast. My good friend Scott Kumler. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Appreciate it, man. Excited to be on. Man. It's been a while since the first time, and I love always doing this with you and jamming with you.
Yeah, no, I'm honored, man. I'm excited, and there's a lot I want to cover with you today, man, because look, this is a very tight real estate market. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people's business is substantially down. Your business is up like 80% year over year. But since you got licensed in 2017, your business has grown every single year, even during this contracting time. Because like we're talking 2017, and then where we were sellers market, and then we had the huge boom with the COVID lockdowns. But even after that contraction, your business has continued to steadily grow to the point where now you're doing several hundred transactions on an annual basis. So let's first start from the beginning, dude. So okay, you jump into the business 2017. Like, what did you start doing as an individual agent? Then we'll jump into the team stuff and the stuff that you're doing now. But just to walk people through, because what you did like a crazy amount of units from what I remember your first year.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what I did when I first got into real estate, is from my lead generation standpoint, is I started hitting open house really hard. I mean, my mindset all along, and I've never felt like I was a salesperson. Like I hate sales, so I've never been someone that'd like the door knock or anything like that. And so my whole mindset all along was just I'll outwork everyone, and so I'll just work hard on everyone else. And I know how most people in the world their work ethic is, and so basically, I started out crushing open houses, so I did 22 open houses my first 25 days in real estate, and then I did 5 open houses a week, every single week for my first year. And then once I kind of started scaling it back from there, after I started having a lot of business and a lot of success with it, and I started getting a lot of showings and a lot of contracts, it became harder to kind of keep up that momentum. So then like my second full year, I scaled it back to 3 open houses a week. My third full year, I scaled it back to 2 open houses a week. And then about 2020, when COVID hit, I kind of really didn't do any open houses at all. But my business has always continued to grow just because my whole mindset when I first got into real estate is how can I get as many leads into my database as possible? And that's what I did, to really start crushing. And then I kind of started doing some other things as well. I started running Facebook ads and some stuff like that. But really just kind of for me started with open houses and just like working my butt off. I had nothing else to do anyways. So it's like, well, I might as well sit in an open house for 4 hours and hope someone comes in and wants to buy a house.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, dude. And because I mean, so many people are. There's two things I'm seeing going on right now, right? People are like, hey, I know I need to do more. So instead of doing like one singular thing and doing a shit ton of that, they end up doing like 10 different things, become a jack of all trade and master of none. They end up doing all half ass. Like you did one thing. Yeah, right. And you're like, hey, I'm gonna master this thing. I'm gonna get damn good at it. And then the other thing that I'm finding too is like, dude, a lot of people just don't want to put in the work. They're looking for that easy button. Yeah, right. And I've yet in my at least my 20 years, I don't know about your experience now, but I've yet to find an easy button. There's a more intelligent way, but
Mhm.
no matter what, it still takes hard damn work.
Yeah, yeah, it's not. I mean, a lot of people get into real estate and they think, okay, I'm going to show a few homes and make a ton of money, but that's not really the nature of the beast at all. And so, well, we talk a lot about time investment, or sorry, money investment when you get into real estate. How much it costs to pay for a CRM and stuff like that. But there's a lot of time investment as well too. And so when you first get into real estate, you're basically investing all your time, hoping that one day eventually you'll make money. And so like with me with open houses, it's like, okay, I'm going to have faith that eventually this is going to start turning into transactions. And so typically, the average agent, it takes about 6 months to get their first paycheck. If you really come out working hard and grinding, it takes about 3 to 4 months to get your first paycheck. And so for me personally, doing 5 open houses a week every week, it took me about 4 months till I got my first paycheck. But then by month six, I had sold 8 homes, and then it started kind of snowballing down there. So even though I was able to start scaling it back, my business kept continuing to grow because eventually you just kind of had that snowball effect where it keeps kind of rolling downhill. So then eventually, after you take that first year and you really work your butt off and outwork everyone, then as time goes on, you don't necessarily have to work as hard as you used to because it just kind of keeps that snowball effect going.
So if you don't mind me asking, how many total homes did you end up closing like your first year?
So my first year I sold 18. Second year I sold 34. Third I sold 36, and then um, uh, year four I sold 50, and year five sold 50 is around 50 as well too. And then that's when I built opened my team, at that point. So year five when I hit that 50 mark, home mark, that by myself, my own personal production, that's when I'm like, all right, maybe I should go ahead and start building a team now. And that's when we started kind of growing as a team.
Yeah, yeah. So you went from okay, 18 your first year, and this is a pretty short period of time, right? Because we're talking in less than 8 years, you went from 18 to doing several hundred. Yeah,
Yep.
right. I know now you have months. I mean, I see your numbers where you have months we pop 30 deals in one single month. Right, which is just crazy to see. And it's been, a, I know maybe it doesn't always feel quick, but from most in this industry, like that is a quick period of time. Yeah, right. So okay, so yeah, you're scaling, right? Going from 18 to 34 to 36 to 50. Then at what point did you know that? Because a lot of people, I get this question all the time. Like, Josh, when should I start a team? At what point do I know I'm ready for a team? Like how did you know it was time for you to build a team?
Yeah. So for me, it was, when you're working with that many buyers and sellers, eventually you kind of start getting a little bit burnt out, from working with a lot of buyers and sellers. And I've always been, from a historical standpoint, I've always been interested in teaching, coaching, stuff like that. Like my mom wanted me to be a teacher when I was growing up. I wanted to be a sports coach because I played, basketball, football, all that stuff. So my original goal was to become a basketball coach, So I always liked the idea of coaching, mentoring, and training people. And so, been beginning of 2022, interest rates started increasing, and so at that point, I'm like, all right, well, I knew exactly what was going to happen, right? Interest rates increasing, the demand's going to go down. Less buyers out there are going to be looking for homes, and so I knew that I was going to have to now triple, or quadruple my work in order to get the same result. And so at the time, since I started kind of get burnt out, I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to, do all that work again, that I had to do when I first got into real estate. And especially me being by myself, I'm like, it all relies on me. So if I have slow months or if things start getting a little bit tougher, it'd be, a little bit harder. And so I just said, okay, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and recruit a bunch of people who aren't burnt out yet, brand new to real estate, still looking to grind it out and crush it. And I'll just train them on everything that I've done. And then it's kind of like, duplicate myself, so to speak. And so that's one of the reasons why I started building a team. I was still in production my first year in the team, but then after that, the team just kind of started exploding to the point where I didn't necessarily have to be in production anymore. So like right now, I'm not necessarily in production, unless like I have a past client that reaches out to me that wants me to help with buy or sell a house. So I still may sell a few units a year, but it's not relying on me. All of our agents do all the transactions.
Yep, love that, dude. So okay, so then if we look at like 2023 to 2024, I think that last full year, I think you went from like 100 units to like close to 200 units.
Mm,
You know, um, Now again, that was the time where most people's business dropped 50%. Your business grew like by like what, 80,
mm.
90%, whatever it breaks. I can't do math in my head, but doubled. What did you do like during that time? Like you mentioned, okay, hey, we got to double down. Yeah, right. But you were like, hey, I don't know if I want to go. Well, and then you get to a point too where it's like you can't really double down.
Mhm.
When you're working 60 hours a week, it's like, well, you can't work 120 hours a week. Like that's just not sustainable. So what did you do within internally within your team to grow so substantially when, dude, let's just face it, man. The rest of, I mean, if you look at last year when you did your business grew by that amount, what's the stat? 71% of realtors did not close one single house.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and our agents are my top agent last year sold 37 homes. I got one agent right now on pace this year. In the first 6 months this year, she's already sold about 25 homes. She's on pace to sell 50 homes this year, and so, to me, it all boils down to one thing. And a lot of that comes down to mindset, because as far as, we're still like last month in the Valley, we're still sold 7,300 homes last month. So that means there's still almost 15,000 commission checks that are getting paid. But the problem is a lot of times people, like I said, this is when it comes to like outworking everyone, right? Everyone else kind of gets that negative like victim mindset where they're like, oh, it's not as easy and I'm not getting like spoon fed, deals like I used to during COVID. And so now I'm starting, struggling and they're like, I want to get out of work or stop doing this. And so for us, we just kind of hunkered down and we basically just outworked everyone. And so for us, as a team growth thing, obviously it comes to recruiting all, great agents. We recruit for culture. We want people who want to be here, want to work, put the effort in. And then, we also just, as far as like coaching, training, giving them opportunities. Now, as a team, we provide leads to our agents, and so one of the things I've done very well at is become an expert lead generator. Obviously, when I first got into real estate, with us, that's how I had, my whole goal was just to put as many leads in my database as possible because, obviously you got the funnel, right? The leads, keeps going down, all of a sudden it results in clients and closings. So to me, it's always like, how can I put as many leads in the funnel as possible? So that's what we started doing with our agents is like, okay, how do we double down? And so where a lot of people like, let's take a look at like, I don't know, like, Facebook ads or Google pay-per-click or realtor.com or anything that you might have to spend money on during this time on the market, right? When things are kind of, going backwards and, people are doing less transactions, typically people start spending less money on that stuff, and they start saying, okay, I'm afraid to invest. So I'm going to go ahead and start scaling back because, there's too much of a risk right now. My mindset was, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put more money in and do kind of the exact opposite of everyone else and go and double down, And so for us, obviously, we spent a lot of money on systems. We spent a lot of money on to make our agents' lives more efficient, so whether it's a different CRM that we have some performance management tools that we've invested in, which allows us to also listen to our agents' calls and kind of provide feedback. And so we basically just kind of, start spending a lot more money to help our agents become more efficient and sell more homes.
Yeah, no, I love that, dude. And one thing that always really impresses me about you, man, is like you're such a great operator. Right? Like meaning like inspecting what you expect. Like, okay, you bring on an agent. Like most people that start teams, they just bring on agents, plug them in, hope and pray that they produce. But you don't abide by that, dude, right? It's like, okay, you're very strict with, hey, our onboarding, our training, then, like daily scorecards. And so kind of walk us through what that looks like, for anybody that's wanting to build a team or as a team leader that's watching or listening to this, like what is kind of the onboarding protocol, but then how do you inspect what you expect to make sure? Because with you're spending so much money on leads and systems and tools, like you need your agents producing, right? And there's got to be that accountability piece, yeah, right? Which again, you've done such a brilliant job at.
Yep, yep. So whenever an agent joins our team, we put them through an onboarding training process where basically it lays out every single day exactly what you're going to do. So
Day
it'll tell
one,
you,
day two.
yeah, day one, day two, day three. And so it's about a 1 month onboarding process where every single day it'll say, okay, watch these videos, do these activities. Then there are certain things with the activities, like for example, when we have like mindset, stuff that our agents have to do, then it's like, okay, complete these worksheets, and then they have to email me those worksheets. Now I'm not necessarily going through, and I might take a quick look at them, but typically them emailing to me isn't about me checking up on what their goals are, business plans, stuff like that. It's just verifying they actually did the work and you did what they're supposed to do. Then when you kind of get in the buyer consultation, listing presentation, before they can pass that part, they have to role play with my sales manager, and I have to make sure they know how to at least do the buyer presentation, listing presentation. So basically, every single day, it tells them what to do, and then they don't start getting leads because especially leads become expensive. And so when you start handing someone leads, even from like a case like Zillow, I mean, we're a Zillow team, right? And we pay Zillow a flex fee, and most people will sit there and say, well, they're not paying any money, it's not costing anything. It's like, well, if I'm providing that lead to the wrong agent, right, and that agent doesn't close that transaction, where if I would have given it to someone else, they would have, that could cost me $3,000, And
Yeah.
so it's important that if I'm going to start providing leads to someone, that I know they at least know the basic fundamentals, and it's also like an opportunity for them to kind of like for me to test what their motivation is. So one of the requirements when we start getting leads is we have a 1 month onboarding. You have to complete it within 1 month. If it takes you 2 months to complete it, you're not going to get leads because at the end of the day, I can't trust you because you're not motivated enough to even get through onboarding, which is pretty simple because it is all of our onboarding is virtual. So there's no excuse why someone shouldn't be able to complete it within that month. So then once they start getting leads at that point, once they complete all the onboarding training, they've passed everything. And there is some at the end of it too, when you kind of get into some of the CRM training, there is some role playing, like as far as like making phone calls or taking incoming leads. We have an AI bot that our agents can role play with, and they have to call every single number, and they have to pass with a certain score in order to kind of pass that next round. So that way, by the time they start giving leads, we know they've already got the scripting down. I don't have to worry about them messing up a few leads or anything like that. Then once they complete and start getting leads, we provide like 10 leads a month to a new agent to our team. And like the first 5 leads, after they get the first 5 leads, I'll have my salesman will pause them. My sales manager will meet with them, and they'll discuss those leads. You know what happened, make sure the systems are right. Same thing after the next 5 leads. Once they get 10 total leads, my sales manager meets with them, make sure all the system, they're doing everything correctly. And then from there, it kind of gets down to like more of a conversion determining how many leads they get. But and then also my sales manager does listen to every single phone call that from an inbound phone call standpoint when it's Zillow, and then he has a scorecard. That's kind of what you'd mentioned asking about the scorecard too. He's a scorecard that he fills out where it's like, okay, did this person ask this question? This person asked this question. And then as he does like the one-on-one coachings once a month, he'll bring up those scorecards and talk to the agent about what they can do better and what they can improve in.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, dude. Okay, so you mentioned and when you were showing me the AI, dude, like it's pretty dope, right? Because yeah, they can call in and role play. And I don't know if these are two separate systems, but then yeah, I think you had another one that like kind of gave them a grade based on what they're doing, how long the conversation is, and you know, what do you mind sharing like what platforms those are that you use?
So it's Maverick. So I,
Okay.
I so I use Maverick for that, and then what happens? So there's two different types of call grading that they get in there. There's one where there's an AI bot where they can call that bot, and you can use kind of like any lead source you want. I mean, you can make an open house lead, Zillow lead, Facebook lead. You can call anything, anything you want, and then the role play. And then once you get done with that role play, usually within the next hour, they send that agent an email with what you did well, and then what are some areas of improvement, and then they give you a score. And so once you get a score, then you kind of know what you need to improve, and then next time you call, you kind of have a good idea. And with that too, what I like about it is they also have different types of leads. So for example, like buyers, they have like 4 different phone numbers, and they have like just like a regular buyer, like an easy buyer. Then they have like an irate buyer. Then they have like a confused buyer, and they have all that stuff. So they're kind of like different scenarios. So some are gonna be a little more difficult than other ones. And they have buyer leads, seller leads, and buyer seller leads. And then the one that they just recently rolled out, which is brand new. It's basically for Zillow Flex teams. Is they also have a Zillow incoming bot as well too, so you can like role play like you're taking like a Zillow lead, so you can make sure the kind of the scripting is set up. And then that's one side of it. Then the other side of it is through our other CRM. It actually Maverick will listen to their calls, like the ones that are over 2 minutes, and it'll actually grade them on those calls. So that when you're doing the coaching calls with them, you can sit there and say, okay, here's the calls that you've had, here's your grades. They have like an ask question percentage, how many times you ask for appointments. So you can kind of see the percentages there, and they grade each call. So then that way you can provide feedback. And again, the goal is to be a 5 or above. So if someone's consistently scoring like ones and twos, then we can start having those conversations with them. Okay, this is what you can be doing better on your follow-up phone calls.
Yep. Yeah. So when you guys hear me on this podcast talk about treating your business as a business, this is like what I'm talking about. Right? Like Scott, he's not an amateur. He's not taking this lackadaisically. He's, everything's inspect what they expect, performance based, results based. So let me ask you this, Scott. Now that you've been running this team for what, 4 or 5 years, 4 years?
About 3. We started about
Okay.
2022. So
Okay. And you went from, I mean, solo agent to, how many agents do you have now? 30?
yeah, 30.
All right. So, from 0 to 30 in 3 years on the team. Um, with your agents, like, and the reason why I'm asking, if anybody's struggling right now, like, like, what do you see what the difference is? Let's just assume that they're both full time and they say they want it. But you got the agent on your team that's popping 50 units a year, and then maybe you got an agent that's popping 10. Like, what do you see the key things are that they are doing of, the top performers that plug in that have big success versus those that, again, just shit's not popping.
Yeah, so I would say for me, so assuming the motivation aspect's the same, because obviously, if everyone's doing all training, everyone's going through the motivation, that's kind of what you're asking, right? Like if everything's all the same, like what's in between like a successful one versus a non-successful one?
Yep.
Yep. So as far as if everything else is the same, to me, the biggest difference between our successful agents on our team versus someone maybe is struggling a little bit more is a successful agent typically is better at leading the process. And so most of the time, like for example, let's say you're meeting someone at a property, like being being reactive is saying to the lead, okay, let me know if you ever want to see any other properties, right? That's very reactive, right? Or someone who's going to have more success is, hey, I found a few other properties I think fits your criteria. Do you want to go ahead and schedule these this weekend, right? That's being more proactive, and they're going to get further along with that client versus someone that's more reactive. Because if you're not leading that process, the client's going to lead the process, and sometimes it's not going to include you in it, you know. And so a lot of times what happens is for someone that doesn't lead the process, that, you know, lead might go out there and talk to another real estate agent, or maybe even go out and say, hey, I'm going to find a lender myself. And then what do lenders do most of the times? The lender's going to sit there and say, oh, don't use this agent over here. I have an agent that knows my loan programs better, you know. Every lender has the exact same loan programs, you know. They just say that because they want to take away a lead from another client. And so typically, you know, and I know we've talked about this before, you know, people who are buying homes want to be led. And so a lot of times people that are more timid and afraid to lead that process are going to struggle a lot more. And so our top performing agents, that's what they do well, is they say, okay, they meet them for the first time and say, okay, this is what you can expect next. Okay, let me go ahead and, you know, you need to get pre-qualified. Let me go ahead and have my lender reach out to you. They're amazing. I know you'll absolutely love them. I'll do a group text message with you and the lender. So that way, when they do reach out to you, you know who it is that's calling you, you know? And so so that's, to me, the simplest answer is the agents that lead the process typically have a lot more success than someone who's more reactive.
Okay, so leading the pro, and like again, assuming that they're both putting the same amount of hours, they're both, you know, like they say they want it,
Mhm.
you know, because look, there's no shortage of hardworking broke realtors in this industry. You know, now if somebody's just lazy, doesn't want to put in the work, okay, we can't help them. But then for those that do want to show up and do the, you know, do the work, so leading the process, what about, you know, what about skill set? You know, right? You know, because one thing that I've learned is like, okay, you mentioned that you kind of grew up in the sports world, right? And that's what you wanted to be. And I've always, it's always been kind of, I don't want to say comical to me, but more kind of sad. But I don't think people necessarily know the difference. But it's like, okay, I watch, you know, I don't know, professional sports player, right? Like, okay, they're going to spend every day, you know, 5, 6 days a week on the field practicing, reviewing tapes to go step on the field to perform for one day a week, 3 hours.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, that's a pro, right? They're professionals. Well, pros get paid, amateurs pay to play. Well, the vast majority jump in this industry, dude, it's like they're just jumping in the field. They're not practicing, they're not rehearsing, they're not. And I'm not saying that we have 60 hours a week to rehearse and practice, but I always tell people, like, dude, like you can spend an hour or two a day, like sharpening your skill set. So, what importance do you see, or is it kind of like just across the board, everybody's mandated to do skill set training in your team, or do you see a big difference between those that really focus on skill set improvement versus just executing that makes a difference in their business?
Yeah, I mean, so skill set's definitely very important. So we basically have a role play script practice every single Wednesday. It's not required right now. We are going to be implementing a kind of a performance plan in the future where if someone's underperforming, they have to go to it. But right now, it's not mandatory. But typically, people that show up to role play script practice are going to have a lot more success because they're going to get practice and talking to people, and on top of that, just listening to other people. You know, I can't tell you in times like I always joke that, like, you know, even though I speak English, I'm terrible at speaking English, you know. So me, it's like most of my stuff I've learned just from listening to other people, you know. I mean, you know, back when we started working together, you know, listening to you talk, you know, do scripting, even when it comes to rewatching the same training over and over and over again, right? You know, like I tell our agents, you know, we have all these training videos, but the videos aren't meant to watch once and then disappear. I'm like, you typically have to watch those over and over and over again. And I've watched the exact, you know, I've watched your training videos every single year for the 8 year, you know. When I first got into real estate, I watched them a lot. Now I watch them basically every, you know, anniversary annually, rewatch all the videos. And I was watching something the other day about, I think it was about sign calls, and there was a script in there that you used, and I'm like, oh my God, that's perfect with Zillow, you know. But I've watched that video, I don't know how many times, but you know, I'm now 8 years into this industry, and I just picked that up. Then now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start using this now because this is a great script, you know. And so, to me, if you're not mastering your craft, you're typically gonna have, you know, not have the same type of success as someone who is, because you can't retain the exact same information. I mean, you know, and so, you know, for me, anytime I study something for a very long period of time until I feel like I can teach it to someone else.
Yep. Yeah, I love it, dude. Yeah, and I can confidently say that I think that you have been through and watched the coaching more than anybody I've ever worked with, man. And I do the same, dude. Like, you know, I had a coaching client that taught me webinars, and his whole program was called 7 Figure Webinars. And I reach out to him, I don't know, like 6 months into this. Like my first 90 day, our first 30 days of executing his coaching, I did like 128 grand that month in my webinars. But then I reached out to them and I shot them a screenshot of like my numbers. I was like, "Hey guys, thank you so much." And they ended up bringing their team out to do a testimonial, video testimonial. But I had like all his other coaching clients that reached out to me, like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, I did exactly what he told me to do." But I went through. I mean, I must have went through his program like 3 dozen times. Like just rewatch it, and then you start executing. Well, when you start executing, that thing's more powerful now. You understand it more, and the teacher appears when the student's ready. So different thing, you know. So I love that, dude. All right, so circling back to you, man, I got so how did you know? Because man, I know so many team leaders meet so many team leaders that are, team leader for 10 years, 20 years. Like you were able to exit from personal production, in less what, like 2 years, less than 2 years, building a team. Like, how did you do it? How did you know you were ready? And what was that process like for anybody that's looking to, be the conductor versus the in the trenches all day?
How did I know I was ready? So, well, first of all, I've always had an interest in coaching, training, and educating people. I think for me, my personal opinion, is that, I've always felt as a team leader that I care more about our agents than I care about myself, right? So my mindset's always like, how can I make more people money? How can I have a bigger impact and stuff like that? And so, I think when I got to the point where I started getting more passionate about helping other agents than necessarily working with buyers and sellers, that's kind of when I felt like it made the most sense because then I'm like, especially in this industry, I mean, the failure rate's so high, and so there's a lot of agents out there that are struggling. And so my mindset was like, okay, if I can provide some of the knowledge that I've created throughout my career and help other agents, then that was going to kind of, I guess, get me, awake in the morning, wake up and be passionate about it. And so that's kind of when I felt like it was the right time to kind of do that. And then, a lot of it also too is there's so much information out there. One thing that like kind of leave your ego at the door, right? You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to know where to go. And so for me, what allowed me to grow as quick as we did, obviously our agents all have access to all your training and all boot camp and stuff like that. I didn't have to go out there and recreate the stuff. Basically, I was able to kind of have plug all my agents into your information, all your training, all your coaching, and I didn't have to go out there because one of the things, especially from a team leader standpoint, one of the hardest things for real estate team leaders to do is to create training programs for their agents. They might start like they might start growing a team and they might say, okay, I'm productive, and stuff like that, but everyone's got different systems, and so like for example, me, I've always done open houses, right? I could probably train someone in open houses, but what if an agent doesn't want to do open houses? What if they want to do social media? What if they want to call expireds? What if they want to call FISBOs? Like I'm okay at that, like I could probably figure it out, but that's not my niche. Like, so I wouldn't be great at training someone how to do that. Whereas someone like, with your training, it's got everything that someone may want to do. So it's like no matter what you want to do, we have you covered. And so that's a lot of our agents to go out there and create their own self-generated business as well based off of your training. So I didn't have to go out there and recreate the wheel, which has allowed me to kind of grow. So all I've had to focus on myself is recruiting and providing one-on-one training and coaching, but the systems were kind of already there for me. So it allowed me to kind of grow as quick as we did without me having to kind of recreate the wheel.
Yep, love that, dude. And then how do you? Because a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I can't wait till I get out of production." But then it's like, well, now you're managing 30 plus agents, plus staff, plus got to make sure everybody's doing what they're doing. Plus you gotta, like you said, like your job is to make sure everybody has ample opportunity. So you're having to also spend a shit ton amount of time and lead gen. And so, like, what do you do to manage your schedule and your time right now?
Well, first, I work a lot more now than I did when I was in personal production. So I didn't think that would be the case, but I work a lot more, but I'm more passionate about it. So I enjoy doing it. So I don't have a problem working. Um, me, and this might be bad, but I'm typically always available for my agents. So like, even if I'm out of town or something like that, I'm always available, like, through text message, email, so it's pretty easy to get a hold of me. But I do live a balanced life. I mean, I work, from home. I see my wife all the time. We go on vacation. But like, even though we might travel and go on vacation, like I'm always working while I'm on vacation. But that's okay though because it's to me, I'm just changing the office for the day. Like next week, for example. I'm going to Lake Tahoe over 4th of July week. But with that being said, it's not like, I can't work while I'm there. I mean, so to me, again, that's kind of goes back to the, like leaving the ego at the door. Like if someone needs help, I'm willing to help them. I might be helping them from a different city or a different state, but I just physically can't open a door for someone if they want to show it to you home, but I can do anything else. So, I don't know if that answers your questions about that or not, but that's kind of with my schedule. I'm just, obviously Google Calendar. I always keep track of that, and I just kind of very strict with, what I do in my calendar. And I also don't waste my time on other things. I live a very boring life, so I don't like, uh, you know, and I think part of it's also that I'm an introvert, so I don't like to like gossip and talk a lot of people. So
Yeah.
I no one's calling me, unless it's an agent needing help. So I'm pretty boring.
Yep. Yep. So then, all right. So it sounds like when I hear that of, because I think it's important for people to hear because, building a team sounds so sexy to people of like, oh, it'd be so nice. I could be out of production. I'm going to buy all this time back. But like you said, dude, like you're working as much, if not more now than you ever did. But the difference is now you have like, okay, I'm guessing that, yeah, the work needs to be get done, but you have a little bit more control over when you got to do it. Then you have, location autonomy,
Yeah, and
right?
I'll say this one of the things that's different that because we're building a team that's a little bit different when I was in production, that's a little bit nicer, is that agents are a little bit more receptive if you can't if you don't get to them right away. Like, when I used to travel, if I'd be out of country when I was in production, I had a client that reached out to me and needed something. I couldn't be like, oh, I'm out of country, I'll get back to you later. Because then it'd be like, okay, I'll find another agent to help me buy a house, right? So with agents, they're a little bit more understanding, especially since and I would say overall, you buy enough goodwill because you're always available. That typically, if you're like on a plane or doing something, they're more receptive to it. And so that's kind of the only big difference is that I do have a lot more time freedom and a lot more understanding with technically my customers because instead of being buyers and sellers, now my customers are real estate agents.
Yep. All right, man. So you recently made a big move in your real estate business. So you decided to, partner with us over here at EXP. Like what led you into making that move?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, get a little bit backstory. Obviously, I know you moved over there like I think it was no, December, November time frame, and so the time when we talked about it, I kind of decided to stay where I was at, but it wasn't because I didn't value the partnership and everything like that. To me. It was more about the fact that I had to understand how this is going to be beneficial to our agents. And so, and at the time, I didn't know how that was. I didn't know much about EXP or anything like that. I mean, I knew, you hear things throughout, through the grapevine in the real estate industry, but I didn't really know, how it operated. And so, what that did was that gave me a bunch of months to really research it. Figure out how can I make this kind of a super like beneficial for our agents, to where I can help them make more money. Because for me, like I knew it would be successful for me. I mean, I knew if I went over there, hey, it'd be financially beneficial. It made a lot of sense. I have a team that obviously works out well. And so to me, that was kind of one of the big things, as far as the ability to make our agents more money. And a lot of it comes down to the way that we decided to structure it. We were able to kind of create like a new level of like an agent leader slash mentor program where, agents that come over that are top producers, they then kind of become these agent leader mentors. When a new agent joins our team, we then put them underneath one of their, the agent leader mentor as their sponsor, which basically then kind of gives that extra level of coaching and training as well. And then, of course, there's a financial incentive because obviously, if they're going to help someone and they're going to train someone how to be successful, then they get revenue share from that. So there's obviously a benefit to that as well too. So that was one thing is that I realized that there's a way I could structure to where I could really help our agents make more money. And the second thing is obviously, we've known each other a long time. I know you have probably the best training platform out there. And so and then obviously you partnered with Mike Sherrar over there, which has some of the best social media training out there. And so to me, it's like, okay, well, how can I give my agents the best training available to go out there and help them crush it and beat every other real estate agent out there as far as in production? And so those two things combined really kind of tipped me over the edge where I'm like, okay, this would be dumb for me not to make a move over there. And so that was one of the reasons why we ended up deciding to make the move is I just felt like, hey, this is going to be really beneficial. And so far, the feedback that I've been getting from everyone has been very positive. I mean, everyone that's moved over has loved it. They've been very happy. Obviously, EXP offers so much, so I'm still learning every single day new things that they provide to their agents. But there's definitely a lot of benefit to it. So I thought that was it's been pretty exciting so far.
Yeah, yeah. I've been here now 6 months, going on my sixth official month, and same thing, dude. Like it's like almost daily I'm learning about something new that they're either adding or that exists that didn't know exist. It's just like it's crazy the amount of stuff that they offer, the support, the training, the tools, the systems. Um, have you checked out the Mike Shor's new AI stuff yet?
I'm in the middle of it right now. Actually, right before I hopped on here, I was actually in the I was watching knocking out a couple of videos before I hopped in here. But that's it's been I mean it's been epic.
Yeah,
That's
I've been binging it too, dude. It's so damn mind blowing. I'm like, man, it's game over, right? All right, dude. So then walk us through, because one of the things that always drove me crazy personally, but then also for my agents, right, is like, and I'm not saying this to brag. I look at it now as like being sad. Like, to have sold 7,000 homes, got all these awards, accolades that are sitting in my garage collecting dust. I can't take them to the bank. I can't cash them in. Yeah, right. So it's like, one thing I like about EXP is, yeah, I mean, we get stock for doing what we're already doing, plus some of the rev share component. Like, it's the only vehicle that I've seen that we can actually build true wealth and build an exit strategy while we're growing our real estate business. Like, we truly are able to become kind of owners and partners in the company and share in that. But then you've also structured it with your team, as you mentioned. So, because there's a lot of team leaders that watch this that might be thinking about this. So you essentially brought in your top agents, had them join under you, and then are putting all your other agents under them, right? So then they're incentivized to mentor them because they're now getting rev share back. You're still getting full rev, like everybody wins, right? Because the rev share goes up 7 levels. Do I have that right about how you structured it?
yeah. I mean, my goal, honestly, is to make my agents more money than they ever paid at EXP. So that's my goal. Is I'm like, okay, well, and then so obviously production plays a factor of that, and obviously become an agent leader mentor because one of the feedbacks I get from a lot of agents before I moved over to EXP, is I'd be talking to a new agent on a recruiting appointment via Zoom, and they'd be like, "Do you have anyone on your team that I can shadow?" And I'm like, well, probably. I'm like, maybe you call someone up. Maybe they'll be nice. Maybe they'll be helpful. I mean, we have nice agents on our team, so maybe you call someone up. They'll be willing to do that. I'm not in production anymore, so you can't shadow me. But this kind of gives that opportunity for someone where it makes sense. Like, why would they say no to having someone shadow them, right? Because, like, let's say you get a brand new Zilli, someone that's new, they might be timid on that first initial appointment, so like that, so they want to kind of shadow someone. So the great thing about it is it kind of allows us to create geographical locations. Because I live in Buckeye myself, and so if someone's in the East Valley, well, it's not that close. Well, I have top producers in the East Valley, I have top producers in the West Valley. So then if someone joins the team, it's like, all right, well, where are you located? And then we sit there and say, okay, if you're in the East Valley, I'll put so and so as your sponsor, because it gets paid 7 levels deep anyways, so why not, reward our agents who are our top producers helping other people with, as our team continues to grow, everyone kind of benefits in that, right? Not just the team leader. And so that was kind of the thought process. So every single person we bring in, we try to put underneath one of our top producers downline so that way they get that incentive. And so, again, either way, 7 levels are getting paid, upwards. So, might as well help our agents, make more money that way. So, um, and that's one of the great things about EXP2 versus some of the other models out there is EXP incentivizes you to do that, right? Like, you're tier two, you make more on rev share than your tier one, and so it's like they want you to put people underneath other agents downline. Tier seven is the highest payout. So the quicker you can get down to tier seven, where if you look at other, downline models, tier one's the highest, tier two's the second highest, tier three, so it kind of goes down from there. So it's like, well, if I'm a team leader, I'm gonna put everyone in my tier one because that's where I make the most money. Well, with EXP's model, that's not the way it works. They actually want you to put people under the other agents downline. And then, of course, the quicker you can get to tier seven, the better off you are. So then it allows, everyone to kind of win together.
Yeah. Yeah. My whole vision and mission with it is, yeah, I want to help as many agents as I possibly can crush their production goal, but at the same time, develop true wealth and build an exit strategy, right? And again, it just allows the best of all worlds. And I got some other questions. So this isn't like an ending the podcast, but for anybody that's watching or listening to this, I'm going to have a link below in the show notes in the description where you can book a call with Scott directly. So whether you're in the Phoenix metro area and you're looking at joining his team, but if you're not, right? Like, I mean, we're partnering with agents, team leaders, broker owners. We're in 27 countries. Like, I just brought over our first agent in South Africa. And so wherever you're at, because here's the cool part about this is not only do you get all of Scott's amazing mentorship and training and support and help, but then you get all of mine, you get all of Mike Sherrard's. Like, we all win in this together. So I'm gonna have a link below if you guys want to book a call with Scott for 100% zero pressure, just discovery call of, what are you guys doing, what do you offer? That's going to be below, and I highly encourage you guys to do that. Okay, dude. So I can't tell you how many. I probably should have asked your permission if that was okay to do that plug.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. So,
Okay. um, um, uh, okay. So I can't tell you how many agents that I've talked to over the last year. and maybe last 2 years, but it just really, it seems like over the last year, more so than ever, that I get them on the phone and they're like, oh, dude, I'm paying for Zillow. Zillow's shit. It's not performing. But dude, you guys are murdering. I know you're murdering with other lead sources too, but like you're one of the top converting Zillow teams I've ever seen. Right? So and this is going to apply not just for Zillow, but any kind of third party inbound, like lead source. But like, what do you guys do to convert these? Because when you got somebody that's saying, "Oh man, they suck," versus I know that you love them. You guys are making great money, and a great ROI, even though Zillow Flex takes 40% off the top. Like when all said and done, the ROI is still great. Like what are you doing, to maximize conversions and work these right?
Yeah, I mean, so kind of first, kind of what you mentioned about people, saying either Zillow lead suck or any go to any lead source. I've always personally said that no matter if you think a lead source, so whether you think a lead source is great or whether you think it sucks, you're right either way. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to mindset, right? If you think open house leads suck, guess what? You're not going to convert any open house leads. If you think Facebook leads suck, you're not. And so, like I always tell our agents, every single team in the valley gets the exact same leads as us. But some agents convert better than other agents, and so a lot of times what happens is we kind of get that negative mindset. We don't look at the opportunities that's before us, right? And so, for example, I'll use an example here. Let's say someone Zilli calls in here and they're like, "Oh, I've already got a real estate agent," right? Normally at that point, the real estate agent say, "Oh, you need to contact your real estate agent. I'm not going to help you," right? That's normally what happens. Well, one of my agents met three people in the last couple of months that had real estate agents in person, ended up selling two of them homes. And so at the end of the day, right, you're trying to qualify people too much where you're like, I don't want to waste my time. But instead, what you're doing is you're not looking at the opportunity to just get in front of someone. And even if they don't buy a house, maybe they know people, maybe the relationship you could build by just helping people. So to me, I've always said, in my personal opinion, is that my success in real estate is not because I'm great at sales. Like I hate sales, like I mentioned earlier, right? The reason I'm great in real estate is I'm great at customer service. My past experience is in customer service management. I used to be in retail management, so I used to be in customer service. So to me, it's more about how can I help you today and what can I do to make your life easier. And so that's the same thing with leads. It's like, don't worry if you buy or sell them a house. Just go ahead, have an impact on someone and go help them, whatever it is they need. So if they're calling in Zillow and they want to go view a home, who cares if they're a real estate agent? Go out there and meet them. Now maybe they'll buy a house with a real estate agent, or maybe they'll realize that they like you a little bit better, and maybe they'll be like, I want to use you to buy a house. And so to me, that's just whatever lead source it is, think to yourself, okay, how can I go ahead and basically help this person today accomplish whatever they want? And because of that impact, they might end up using you to purchase a home. So
Yeah, because I find that, okay, number one, it could be a defense mechanism,
mm,
just like no different than when we walk into a store. Like you walk into, I don't know, Macy's or Nordstrom's, or I don't go to the mall anymore, so I don't know what stores are out there. But somebody comes up to you, can't help you find something. I'm just looking. Dude, no, you're not 16 anymore. Like you drove your ass out there. You're probably on a mission to find something. Probably could use their help, but we just want to be left alone. So sometimes it's a defense mechanism. Other times it's, I look at it, every lead is probably in a dozen other agents' CRMs. So they probably are talking with another agent, but that doesn't mean that they signed a buyer broker agreement, that they're fully committed to another agent, right? So I love that. Then from there, so I'm okay, you got mindset, you got, the coming in from a service perspective, but then I know that you guys' follow-up game's on point too.
mm.
So, like, can you kind of walk us through? Because like, you know, I can't remember what Zillow's last stats were. It was years ago that I heard this, but something like the average agent called the leads twice and then gave up.
Yeah.
Right. So like, how are you? Cause like I've discovered with any lead source, like, yeah, you got to have the immediate game because you're going to have the low hanging fruit that's hot to trot. Then you're going to have the mid game that, let's call it 3 months to 12 months. And then you got that long game where I know you and I've talked about this before. Like how many people have you had in your CRM that never picked up the phone, that never responded to an email 2, 3 years later? Like, oh, hey, Scott, I'm ready.
Mhm.
Right. Like you got to also play that long game.
Yep, exactly. I mean, so in our follow-up process is pretty simple. I mean, and we have different stages, especially when it comes to Zillow. So if someone's like in appointment set, showing home, submitting offer stage, the goal is to call them once a week. So you're reaching out to them every single week. If someone's in that nurture status where it's maybe more of a long-term nurture, you're calling them every 30 days, just kind of checking in. Obviously we have drip campaigns we put people on, emails, texts, stuff like that. But typically just that consistent aspect of it is what what's going to, help you convert those leads. I was at an event, and you're actually at the same event too, and one of the speakers mentioned that you're going to sell more homes calling 30 leads 30 times than calling 900 leads once. And so a lot of times it's not necessarily that we need more leads, it's that we need to do a better job following up with people. And so that consistency is more important than anything else, because what you want to do is you want to hit them at the right time when they are ready. Maybe they didn't answer the phone 3 or 4 times in a row because they're busy and they're like, I'm not ready yet. But the next thing you know, maybe they had a fight with their landlord and they're getting tired of their rental property. You call at the right time. And they're like, oh, I was just thinking about that. Yes, I do, want to purchase a home now. So the consistency is more important than anything else. If someone's more of a long term, like, even if someone has an agent, usually I say call them every 45 days just to check in, see how their home search was going. Um, but that's typically kind of our follow-up process looks like. And then we do also, especially when it comes to leads, with that Maverick that we were talking about, we do have a system when it comes to like nudging. So we remind our agents to follow up with leads if they haven't touched base with them. And then typically if one lead gets nudged 3 times, we pull the lead and put it in the pond and then allow our other agents to reach out to them.
Okay. Yep. Yep. So, okay. So you're assigning your agents leads, but then if they get pulled or if somebody maybe leaves the team, they go in the pond. So then you have this big pond of leads that any of your agents can jump in there at any point in time, and dial. I know at one point in time, and you talked about, I don't know if you're still doing this, so I'm just curious of, okay, your agents have to do so many pond dials a week to qualify for leads. Is that still something you're doing, or have you
Yeah,
walked away from that?
so we kind of transitioned it a little bit. So we were having them call pond leads. We did recently hire some ISAs, so our ISAs are kind of hammering the pond a little bit more right now. We've transitioned more to calling leads in the ponds, to also adding in the AI role playing that I was talking about earlier. Because I feel like with the AI role playing, we have a more so they have to make so many dials in the pond. It's not as much as they used to, but now they have to call the AI role playing, so we at least know that they have the scripting down. Because otherwise, if we just say, "Hey, call pond leads," and they don't have any idea how to, script it or anything like that, what effect is that going to have? And then on top of that, a lot of times people like will call leads as more of a way to like check a box, where it's like, I'm gonna call this lead, make $200 real quick, and then it's like, okay, now I'm done. Give me leads, and it's like, well, I don't know if you even know the scripting or if you're just calling them and not even having, good conversations. And so that's kind of where the AI bots started to be integrated into our training.
All right, dude. So when it comes to one of the biggest challenges that any team leader, brokerage owner has is getting talent, recruiting talent. And we got kind of two components to this, right? You got staff and then you got agents. So let's maybe start on staff. Like, what have you found, you know, um, to be most important or most effective when it comes to identifying the right people to go out there and hire?
I mean, so a couple of things. One, obviously you gotta have the right mindset. As far as like hiring, I think you gotta be service based. You gotta be willing to help people. And so, I think that's also extremely important. Communication skills are also important. To me, like for example, like with our agents, like I mentioned, our agents are our customers at this point. Because I don't help buyers and sellers anymore. That's what our agents are for. And so, from a support standpoint, we have to provide the best service to make them to where they feel like they're getting the value from being on the team. Because a lot of times what happens is if you have support staff that doesn't provide very good service, then an agent that might be on the team might sit there and say, okay, I no longer feel like I'm getting the value that I once had, and then they don't want to pay those team splits, right? So obviously they're paying team splits, which can sometimes be a good portion of the commission check, especially if it's a lead that we provide. And so if we're expecting that in return, then we've got to provide top-notch service to our agents. And then availability, be willing to help. I mean, especially like have a sales manager now. He's got to answer the phone when an agent's call as well too, just kind of be just like me. But then like that helps me a lot because like I said, I'm extremely busy. Well, now I have a sales manager who can help answer contract questions, things I don't necessarily need to worry about, and just focus more on the coaching, training, and all that good stuff. So
Yep. Love that. All right. So getting into agent recruiting, dude, right? You know, um, and I don't know if you've cracked the code on this, but like, how do you go out there and find talent? Is it just about, hey, I'm going to bring them in, we're going to test them, through onboarding and role play, the testing system that you put them through, and they're either going to make it or they don't make it, or have you kind of cracked the code a little bit of like during the interview process, being able to like tap into certain desires, like hey man, there's the backup against the wall? Like, do they need to succeed? Right? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I haven't cracked the code. At the end of the day, the way I think I find that like with agents, you just never know, right? Like agents, like, some agents can tell you all these amazing things. You're like, oh man, this guy's gonna crush it, and they come in, they're a big dud, and then vice versa. You might have someone that you're thinking to yourself, okay, this guy's not gonna make it. Then they come in and they're one of your top performers. So to me, honestly, um we bring everyone in that wants to join the team. As far as like, unless I feel like someone's a bad culture. So we do recruit for culture. So if I'm talking to someone, I'm like, okay, this guy's kind of an asshole or something like that. Or if I feel like I do not want to spend 5 minutes on the phone with you because of how much of a jerk you are, then that's the one circumstance where it's like, okay, I'm gonna recruit for culture and recruit for attitude. And then after that, that's kind of where the onboarding comes in. So okay, I don't know if you're gonna succeed or not, but here's your test, right? Your onboarding's your test, and we'll see how you do. And then, whenever someone starts getting leads, usually if they pass that test, then it's like, all right, now we're giving you more tests, which is, hey, we're gonna give you some leads. But then once you get to this total number of leads, we should have a pretty good, an idea of how you're gonna do. And so at that point, then the lead flow that they get is based off of their conversion percentage. And if they're not converting and they're struggling, then typically they have to show up to meetings and do all the things they need to do in order to improve. But if they aren't willing to improve, then at that point we kind of cut them off getting leads and stop it.
Yeah. So what is the percentage rate of, okay, those hired that get through all the testing that end up, getting on leads, and I mean, is it like 50%? Like, what does that look like?
I would say as far as people that eventually get on leads, it's probably about 70%. 30% don't. But now those people still stay on the team. I mean, like it's just that they just never complete the onboarding. Some don't even start it. They're like, you said about getting leads and you tell them so many times, we got to go through the onboarding, and then they just still never start it. So about 70%, completed. The other 30%, sometimes they'll stay on the team. Every once in a while, they'll kind of, they'll leave. But I mean, our turnover rate's not super high. We have because to me, actually, whether you get leads or not, I'm gonna treat everyone the same. I'm still gonna try to help you and do, whatever has got to,
Yeah.
be done. Just at that point, I don't want to waste my resources by giving you leads. So, but if you have any questions with contracts, or we still provide TC support and all that stuff for them. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So about 70% end up getting through it to go to leads, 30% don't. But like you said, okay, they can do sphere of influence, they can do open houses, they still get all the team tools, training systems, they're just not getting leads.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and dude, and when I asked that question about cracking the code, like, I don't know anybody that's cracked the code.
Mm.
Yeah, right. Like, meaning that, dude, like, just like you, man, I've had so many that talk such a big game, and then I've had so many that I've been excited about that then just massively disappoint me. And then I've had those where I'm like, dude, I think I made a mistake here. And then that shocked the living hell out of me. And that's what I love about real estate is it doesn't matter how tall you are, short you are, thin you are, overweight you are, good looking, ugly, like how thick your accent is. Like, none of that matters. It just comes down to like, how bad do you freaking want it?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Well, who's that one guy that's blind and he still like crushes it in real estate? I mean, so
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you just have to have a good work ethic and put the effort in.
Yep. Yep. 1000%, man. So, all right. So now that you've been on this journey for, since 2017, so 8 years, if Scott today could go back to Scott in 2017 and give yourself a couple pieces of advice that you feel would have really fast forward this already fast success trajectory that you're on, but that you wished you would have known, like what would that advice look like?
Probably the one advice I would have given myself was that I should have started a team sooner. So, I think that's one of the things because it seemed like such a daunting task at the time. So, like, I think I had talked about like because my first couple agents, I always say I started the team in 2022, but my first couple agents kind of started in 2020. So I brought on like a couple agents, but it really wasn't like it is today. It was more of like, hey, someone wanted to go someplace to get some personal mentorship, so they knew I was crushing it. So they're just like, hey, I'm gonna contact Scott, see if I can join his team, and they were kind of part time. They really weren't out there doing the work or anything like that. So for 2 years, basically, I kind of spent wasting time and not go all in when it came to building the team. And then finally in 2022, when the rates started changing, that's when I'm like, all right, now I see what's going to happen. Now I have to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to, go back to doing 5 open houses a week, or something like
Yeah.
that. So that's probably the one thing I would probably start earlier because that probably would have put me in a better position that we are in today. And we probably would have been a lot further ahead. than where we are.
Yeah. So okay, fast forward the clock 5 years, 10 years from now, like whatever that time frame is, like what's your vision for the team? Like where do you want to take this thing?
Yeah, obviously now with the XP, the great thing about it is that we can help more people nationwide, so obviously, bringing more people in. One of the great things I love about it is have real estate agents that are friends in different states. So now I feel like I can help them, which I couldn't do before. So that's one of the exciting things about it is now I have the ability to help more people. As far as the team growth aspect of it, we're hoping to continue to grow. My goal is to continue to help, we're going to continue to double down on different lead sources and try to bring some more opportunities in for our agents to continue to grow. I mean, so me personally, I'm such a competitive person. So like, my goal is always to double my business over the previous years. So, this year my goal is to sell 400 homes. After that, it'll be sell 800 homes, and I'm not afraid to set my sights high, but my continue just to have a bigger impact on other agents' lives. And the great thing about this model that we're in now with EXP is we can, because now we can, work with people in different states and different countries. So that's kind of like my personal goal is just helping more people.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And for anybody watching, listening again, if you scroll below show notes or the description, but depending on where you're watching this, there's going to be a link where you can book a call with Scott if you want to learn more about it, what a partnership with us, whether again it's joining his team or you just want to partner with us, where you get all of our mentorship coaching 100% for free, and we can support you building your real estate business, your team. There's going to be that link below for you to go out there and schedule that. And Scott, man, truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here. This has been a lot of fun, my friend.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's been amazing. I appreciate having me on.
Yeah, 100%. Those watching, listening, as always, we truly appreciate you guys. Keep crushing it, keep kicking ass, and we will see you next time. Peace.